Guess what? Estate planning laws are always changing. Nowhere is this more likely to happen than in estate planning kind of tax laws. So here's what I want you to do to protect yourself. My name is Philip Ruce. I'm the estate planning director at Stone Arch Law Office, which is a law firm in Minnesota. We work with Minnesota families on this exact same thing. First, don't forget about estate taxes. There's two ones that can hit you here. There is the federal estate tax. Some people call it death tax. And then Minnesota has its own estate tax. And you're going to want to coordinate these. It doesn't really hit you until your net worth hits a certain point. But once it does, it can come down heavy. The federal estate tax exemption, the amount that everybody gets estate tax free, that changes every single year. If you're planning on making gifts to people, there's a federal annual gift limit you can make where you don't have to worry about any sort of tax returns or anything. And that also changes every year. But then we have the Minnesota estate tax, which has a fixed amount. It only changes when there's legislation to change it, which hasn't happened for a very long time, which means we're probably due, honestly. And what that means is that these things are changing every year, which means planning strategies can change every single year. So make sure you keep up on that. If you haven't updated your estate plan for some years, it's probably due to be updated or potentially rewritten. Secondly, I want you to be very careful with your tax-deferred accounts. You see these most often with 401ks and IRAs. There are very specific rules when it comes to distributing this money. If I pass away and I leave an IRA or 401k, I'm just going to call it an IRA for the purpose of this. If I leave an IRA to my spouse, she has the ability to take small amounts of this out every year for her life. They're called RMDs. You have to take them as an individual too, but this is specifically for spouses after death. And the nice thing about these RMDs is there's only a small distribution, so there's only a small bit of tax on that every single year. If you leave money to a non-spouse, like an adult child, for example, there's exceptions, but for the most part, 95% of the time, this person's going to have to take all of this money out over a 10-year period, which means they are probably going to have to take larger distributions, which means they're going to pay more tax on these, okay? And then if you leave it to an entity, like a charity, the charity has to take the whole thing out in 5 years. And they don't, if they're a qualified charity, they don't pay tax anyway, so they probably don't care. But there's other entities where we leave things, such as trusts. And if you have a revocable trust created, which is a very good idea, by the way, if you don't do your IRA correctly, you can screw that IRA up in a pretty big way. So we want to make sure we're coordinating those, and your estate planning attorney will walk you through all of that. So consider those big tax changes. We've got the estate tax that changes all the time. We've got income tax that changes all the time. Capital gains are a whole nother issue. Lifetime gifting versus after death gifting have different rules. So make sure you're coordinating all three of these things. We can help with this for Minnesota families. We at Stone Arch Law Office can be contacted at 612-444-5555 to book a call, or book a call directly on our website. It's stonearchlaw.com.